Welcome back. Now, it is no longer news that China has already assumed a leading role in the global economy. And recently, the federal government announced a bilateral currency swap agreement between Nigeria and China. Well, now, following the adoption of the motion, Nigeria's House of Representatives resolved that the committees on banking regulations, banking, and other ancillary institutions liaise with the Central Bank of Nigeria to explore the appropriate mechanisms to speed up the 2018 agreement on yuan as an alternative trading currency. Now, this call was contained in a resolution that was adopted following a motion moved by Jafaru Leko, a member of the House. Now, in the motion, Leko urged the government to adopt the currency amidst the struggle of the Naira against major Western currencies. Well, joining us to have this conversation now in the studio with me is Oludare Akinlaja, the managing partner, OAR&D company, management consultant, and international development advisor as well. Thank you so much, Oludare, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, and compliments of the season, by the way.
Same to you.
All right, talking about the need for speed when it comes to using Chinese currency in Nigeria as an alternative trading currency, what exactly are the potential economic benefits of adopting the yuan as an alternative trading currency?
All right, so one of the advantages will be that because we have China as one of our major trade partners, okay, if you go around Nigeria, most of the factories, most of what you see around are Chinese owned. The advantage will be that we will not be putting pressure on our Naira to always look for a currency to be a medium of exchange. Okay, so you have some bit of stability. So if you notice what, for instance, the dollar, what always causes that pressure on the Naira is importers or people who are doing business in Nigeria always having to look for the dollars. Okay, now that demand for the dollars will always put pressure and increase the value and all that. So if you have yuan, which is a Chinese currency, as a reserve, you have it in its massive supply in your economy, you really will not always look for Naira to chase the yuan. You readily have the yuan, okay, to be able to do international trade and international transactions. So that's the advantage sort of with the yuan, is that you have some sort of stability, and you will not always have to be looking for forex, as the case may be, to do your international transactions, thereby putting pressure on the Naira.
All right, to be more specific now, how would the adoption of that currency impact Nigeria's trade relations with China itself and, of course, other global partners?
So the truth is, with China, it will be easy, but will other countries want to accept yuan? So,
exactly.
So the challenge will be, how then will you be able to trade with other partners? Okay, so you can trade with China, but can you be able to trade with other partners? So the issue is always the dollar has been able to become, has developed, I would say, to become a global currency for exchange everywhere in the world. If you check e-commerce platforms, you check your currencies, you check gold, you check others, they are always marked against the dollar. So literally, you can use the dollar globally. The question you will then ask is, has the yuan become that globally accepted? So if you are not trading with China, so what happens to us? We will still always have to look for the dollar or other currencies of other countries. So you see, that's the impasse we find ourselves. If we say we want to trade with China, we are good. But what if we want to trade with other parts of the world? What's going to happen?
Stuck. Okay. Now, in terms of challenges, now that is one challenge that you have mentioned, but what other potential risks and challenges are associated with adopting this currency as our alternative trading currency?
The truth is, Nigeria and Africa as a whole must find out that we can't keep benchmarking our development against someone else's progress. Because at the end of the day, we are saying, oh, because China is maybe a large economy, let's benchmark our reserves against the dollar, against the yuan. Why are we not focusing on our internal productivity and seeing how we can become a productive nation by itself and begin to earn whatever currency we want to earn? Now, shifting our reserves to become yuan and the rest doesn't really solve it, okay? If at a particular point China becomes a global power, China then becomes to play its global politics, then we are still going to be at the mercy of China. So the issue is, can we become an internally stable economy increase our internal productivity, increase our exports, so we don't always have to be at the mercy of someone else. And remember that if you are going to use the yuan, you are benchmarking against China. What if there's some global pressure, some global politics, where the global powers are trying to play some level of politics? Guess who is going to be at the wrong end of the stick? It's going to be Africa or Nigeria, as the case may be. So we need to stop looking for a way where we can keep saying, oh, let's see against the China, against this. So if China stops being, we'll look for another one. Is that how we're going to keep moving? Okay, so Nigeria and Africa needs to start saying to itself, how do we become productive as a nation, where we don't always have to benchmark our development against international Western powers or other countries just because we think they are global powers. We will always be at the mercy of whatever global politics happens at that level.
Right. Now, with all this said, there is still a problem that the adoption of the yuan may not be able to solve, and that is Nigeria's inability to manage external shocks and economic crisis, both within and outside.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So that's it. That's why I said we will still always be at the mercy of people. But if we design ourselves, become more industrialized, see how we can deal with power, see how we can improve our exports, see how we can stop being oil dependent, just improve the productivity of the nation. Sometimes I think most of these policies and push is simply because we don't want to become internally responsible. Okay, if we are internally responsible and we're looking at how we can become an exporting nation, closing our own gaps, making our own internal sacrifices, then we will not be really exposed to those level of shocks. Because if we keep benchmarking against external people, so one day, what if China has a change of power and there's pressure in China? What happens to us?
That's a valid question. But then in terms of speeding up the process, right, we do know that the House of Representatives are urging the federal government and the CBN to speed up the process. The agreement has been signed. So what is the delay?
Oh, blessing. There's a lot of politics in all of that. So is America going to watch you just adopt yuan as your reserve currency? Okay, there's going to be a lot of conversation around that. There's going to be the American government asking, oh, what of our assets? What of our investments? So there's going to be a lot of global politics taking place in that. People must understand that everything we see is literally global politics. Okay, even currencies. Okay, so it's not just speeding up the process. If you're trying to make that decision, the American government is going to be calling you and saying, what's going to happen to our assets? How are we going to deal with our assets? Are you going to benchmark our assets to in yuan? It's going to be a disadvantage in America. So there's a lot of conversation going on that. So when I hear speed up the process, my question is how? What do you mean by speed up the process? It's going to take a lot of conversation. In fact, BRICS, which is even international, the organization that Russia is pushing, is even playing the politics to get global adoption. Because there are a lot of factors in between that you have to weigh, and you have to make concessions, you have to have a buy-in, because the world is highly globalized. You don't exist on your own. There are other factors, other people that have to be engaged in that decision-making process. Yeah. So when I hear the word speed up, I don't know what they mean by speed up. It's going to take a lot of conversations, and because even BRICS has not gotten to where it wants to get more. How much more we who want to make yuan a reserve? Well,
there's no speeding up anytime soon then. But anyways, okay, so now we do know that from time immemorial, I'm talking about centuries ago, the world has operated on a barter system, right? The only difference is then it was more primitive, now it's more modernized. Yeah. So I'm saying that to say that if we are having this agreement with China, what are we bringing to the table? A lot of times we hear of these agreements being signed, the federal government to benefit this from this country, to benefit international aid from this country, but we're not exactly talking about what we can offer.
Well, the truth is, I must tell you, Blessing, there are loads and loads of Chinese companies in Nigeria as I'm speaking to you now, in their hundreds. And two things they will tell you is that the closeness to raw materials and our markets. Those are the two things that everybody who wants to come into our economy is going to be looking at, the nearness to raw materials. We have massive amounts of raw materials within our borders that these companies would like to access, and we also have a market that they would like to also assess. So that's really what we're bringing to the table. It's our raw materials,
our resources,
and the market size that we have. And you must also understand that if you look at the Chinese model, they are really not about luxury goods, as the case may be. They're really maybe not focused on luxury goods. They're focused on affordable goods, things that people can readily afford. And the Nigerian market has the population where they really can buy. And I'm saying this because just recently I was having a conversation with people who deal in that market, and I was asking somebody, a Chinese person in that market, and I was saying, you know what, we just want to produce for the Nigerian market. We're not focused on exporting. If Nigerians alone are buying our products, then we're in the market.
Right. So with that being said, is there any possibility, no matter how little, for exploitation? Because sometimes our over dependence leads us to vulnerability. So there's a thin line. Is there a possibility that we get exploited?
Oh, of course, your labor is going to be exploited, because I've gone around most of these companies and they hardly employ Nigerians. So you're going to have challenge with labor, for instance. How many Nigerians are going to be employed within this framework? So there will always be exploitations, and we must come to this full knowledge. Whatever it is, China is not doing it because they love Nigeria. Okay,
right?
They are in business. It's a business for them. They are trying to make profit. They are trying to expand their global influence. They are trying to see how productive their own economy can be. Maybe you might say the behavior or the cultural disposition of a particular country differs from the next person, okay? But the truth is, it's not social work. It's not a non-governmental organization where we just want to be giving. Everybody's in it because they have looked at the benefit it's going to give to their economy. So, of course, we have to be careful. Whatever we are signing, whatever we're designing, that is not going to be exploited. Our labor, how much of Nigerians we don't always have to employ. How does this yuan, this reserve, how is it used? In whose custody? And all that stuff. It needs to be clearly spelled out. So at the end of the day, we don't think that we're excited with this, and at the long run, we're going to be at a disadvantage.
Right. Okay. Is there a particular reason why African countries are turning away from the dollar to the Chinese yuan? Some people even claim that the US dollars have destroyed the economy of some poor countries.
Well, the truth is, I have to be careful now. the truth is sometimes, I spoke about the cultural differences, okay? Globally, people feel that maybe the dollar has been used to consistently peg African countries at a particular level. So, blessing, if you are calculating the GDP of any nation, you will always use the dollar as the benchmark of who is poor or what is an unhealthy economy. So the question is, that means the American the dollar is a determinant of a productive economy. Okay, so he who produces it, he who defines it, will always be on top. So that's why you have a lot of countries who are revolting and saying, we might not have as much problems as America has. But guess what? Because they're the ones defining it, because they're the ones telling us what's development and what is not development based on their currency. How are we able to tell if we are growing or not? Like I jokingly say, if America has a problem, they will just print more dollars. Right. If we have a problem, can we print dollars?
Well, as careful as you try to be, you did hit the nail on the head with that one. But I'm just going to ask one last question before we let you go. Now, over the years, right, Nigeria, Zimbabwe, South Africa, Ghana have suffered currency depreciation.
Yeah.
Some people have even reached an all-time low. And most of them are either considering or in the process of adopting the Chinese yuan, according to the statistics that I read earlier. Yeah. Is this the way forward for African countries in general?
The way forward is there. You see, when we speak about policy and economics, there are many parts to it, many consistently moving parts. If you say you want to adopt this, you will open up another problem along the lines, which is why I always say what is happening in Africa is simply a wicked problem. When you're trying to solve one, you are creating another one down the line. But the truth is, Africa needs to come together. And I think that's what the ACFA seems to solve, but that's not what we're talking about today. So I won't hammer on that a lot. But the truth is, Africa needs to find a way where it is self-sufficient. We need to improve our ability to become a productive continent, where we can improve our exports and it will become possible for us to begin to have conversations in the global market. For instance, Saudi Arabia can beat their chest and say, if we don't give oil, the world is going to cough. Okay, that's what they bring to global conversations. What is Africa as a continent bringing to global conversations? If we say our raw materials, how do we value these raw materials? How are they able to affect our conversation globally? Okay, we want to have conversations on Africa. We always keep going abroad to have these conversations. We're not having them on the continent. So what exactly are we bringing to the table? As far as we cannot properly define what value we are bringing to the table, how can we value our raw materials? In fact, we don't want to export them anymore. Come and open these factories on the continent, for instance. Why do we always keep taking it out there? Why can't we make it on the continent? And I'm sure these are the kind of conversations China is having, which is making it look like if more African countries are tilting towards China, because China is saying, you know what, you don't even have to bring it to us, we'll come to you. Okay, that will entice, or that will be attractive to any economy. Okay, because what we have always had is people buying our raw materials for peanut. Take a look at the countries that had the coup. Okay, because they feel that the countries will come there, take their raw materials at almost nothing, take it to their country, mine it, and sell it to them at almost times 10 or times 15 the price. And China is saying, you know what, you don't even have to bring it to us, we'll come to you. No matter how uninterested you are, once someone tells you, I want to come to you and become a partner, it will be enticing. I think that's the advantage China has over every other person that Africa is having conversations with.
Well, that's a good note to pull the plugs. But anyways, thank you so much, Oludare Akinlaja. You really did justice to these questions, and I'm glad that you were able to join us on the show. Oludare is a managing partner, OAR&D company, management consultant, and international development advisor. And compliment of a season to you as well.
Same to you.
Thanks for joining us.
Have a great weekend ahead. Thank you.
Well, this is where we call it a wrap on VSA. Thank you so much for staying tuned, and we do hope to bring you more updates as these stories unfold. Do well to join us again in our subsequent episode as we discuss the issues around the African continent and possibly prefer solutions to them. Stay with us. The news comes up next. I'm Blessings Mosugu, and it's been VSA.